Hello there. I have the privilege of having Travis Chen with me. Hey, Travis, how are you doing?
Hi, Marcelo. Great. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast. I'm so honored to be joining you today.
I'm the one that should thank you. It's 6 p.m. our time here in Pacific time, so it's a Friday evening. And instead of enjoying Seattle, you're here speak with me, and I'm so looking forward to telling people a little bit about you, and hopefully I can do justice on what you're going to bring to the table here. So again, thank you very much for joining us. And Travis, first question I usually ask is, what do you do? Tell us a little bit about what you do and who you are.
Yeah, thank you so much again for the opportunity. I'm Travis. I'm currently an enterprise account executive in a sales role at one of the largest cloud computing companies in the world, specifically Amazon Web Services, which is the cloud computing arm of Amazon, which we're all probably aware of globally. But beyond that, I have many interests outside of my professional work and experience, including as an angel investor, advisor for many different startups and up-and-coming businesses. And then also, I have a very big passion of helping youth and helping the globe, specifically on mental health. So that's been a very big passion of mine, and we can kind of dive deeper into that. But that's a high-level overview of me. I'm based in Seattle, born in Taiwan, and grew up in LA.
Fantastic. And thank you again for joining me. And Travis, going back in time, how did technology get into your life?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, Marcelo. And I remember very vividly ever since I was young. I was very fortunate to have my first ever camera when I was in kindergarten. And this was when I was, about 5 years old, 4 or 5 years old. And I remember those cameras being, very boxy, very big, very thick,
Yep.
right? And this was before like SD cards, right? This was like those big memory cards that you had to plug in. And I think you could only take like 15 photos. And it was very limited in what you could do and the colors that you could see, right? And that was my first exposure to technology, my first exposure to what the possibilities of technology could be. Over time, I was also very grateful to be handed, my first computer at the in second grade, where again, very boxy, very big, very heavy. It was, a desktop, right? There wasn't any laptops back then. And that was my first exposure to technology at a young age. And that gave me the opportunity to really understand the possibilities of what internet could do. And when we were young, I still remember growing up, my family being fascinated by the idea that we can connect from one computer to another computer using webcams. And what we did, even though we were literally in different rooms, right, like separate rooms from our homes, we tested it out. We tried it out because that's how fascinated we are with technology. And that was only less than 20 years ago. And over time, the evolution of technology that we're seeing and the pace and the rapid pace that we're seeing in technology has just been an instrumental speed. And I'm so excited about, the technologies that we're seeing in today's world.
Yeah. And thank you to the technology. Here we are. So in Seattle and in Vancouver, we're having this conversation here. So if technology was not there, I don't think this would be possible at all. So, and Travis, you mentioned the kindergarten time. How was elementary school time, and how was it? You mentioned that you had access to a computer in your second grade, but tell us a little bit about elementary school and high school time. How was it?
Yeah, well, like I said, I was born in Taiwan, which is an island, a country in East Asia, just right next to Japan. Many people don't know it, but it's a country of 23 million people. And now today it's known in the political world for obviously having a lot of tensions with China and other issues going on there. But more importantly, when we talk about technology, it actually, fun fact, runs literally more than 95% of what we're seeing in terms of chips, thanks
Incredible.
to TSMC, which is Taiwan Semiconductor, which is born and bred and manufactured in Taiwan. And so everything that you're using today, including your computer, your phones, your cars, your TVs, your microwave, everything pretty much 99% relies on TSMC technologies, whether or not you know it. And so I bring that up because that was a very instrumental time of my life, and still is, with my grandparents, my family there. But my family and I moved to the United States, specifically Los Angeles, at the age of 3. And we quickly enrolled into school and had to learn a brand new culture, a brand new world, a brand new universe, a brand new education system. I recently actually published a book less than 2 years ago, about a year and a half ago, on my family's journey to the United States, and it's called A Kid's Book About First Generation Immigrants. And I talk about specifically my experience growing up in a brand new world that we were not accustomed to, right? My parents did not know what it was like to grow up in the United States. Didn't know what it was like to navigate the education system, didn't know what it was like to navigate the workforce in the United States, right? So this is a very big culture shock, and I write that to inspire other people. To answer your questions about my own experiences as an elementary, middle, and high school, I want to take everyone a step back to understand, what Gen Z, and I'm Gen Z, experienced growing up, right? Really quickly after we were born, 2001 happened, right? 2001 happened where the world upended itself in terms of terrorism, in terms of safety, in terms of comfort, right? Even like the simple stuff like walking from the airport entrance to your plane, that all changed, and the systems of that all changed, right? Quickly after that, we had 2007, 2008, economic downfall. People lost their jobs. I had family, friends. I had, family. I had loved ones. I had my peers, my classmates who literally didn't parents didn't have jobs for many, 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 many months and couldn't put food on the table, right? And I share this because my upbringing was pretty tumultuous, right? The global events, the rise of technology, the rise of globalization, the increase in just the pace of change, right, was insurmountable, right? And to the point where we experienced that, and we were in that. And I remember small changes within my own education system where we had, those little laminated projector systems that were super old school in my first, second, third grade. And then we slowly transitioned to projectors in the classrooms. Yep. And then in middle school, we slowly transitioned to smart whiteboards in the classroom. And then in high school, we transitioned to having a one-to-one. Everyone had a dedicated laptop that you could bring home to use and you could use in the classroom, right? This rise of technology, we were able to be a part of that change and that evolution of the globalization, the rise of technology, the rise of innovation. And it's something that I'm very passionate about. I bring up a lot in my upbringing because to me, every single day that doesn't go by that we don't introduce something new is weird. Right, being stagnant, being in the same place, in the same part of your career, the same part of your life, or the same part of your entire world is interesting if you're not moving and you're moving at a pace that's as fast as lightning speed, basically. Right, and so I take that into my personal and professional life these days, where we need to act fast. Right, we need to execute quickly. We need to do things with lightning speed, because if you're not innovating at the pace of where others are, you're already behind, right? And that's what my upbringing has been, and I'm proud to be able to take those experiences, the changes that I'm seeing, the changes in innovation that I'm seeing, to my now professional life.
It's absolutely fantastic, and thank you for sharing that. And how was university for you?
Yeah, so I went to University of Southern California, USC, studied business and international relations. And college was a great time for me, where I was able to really learn and understand, what our world consists of, right? Like growing up, I think we are often in a bubble where, we are growing up in a community that our parents selected for us, and no wrong to that. Really appreciated the community that I grew up in. However, when you're able to be exposed to different ideologies, different backgrounds, different values, different cultures, different religions, in a melting pot, really, like a university system that's international and global. You're really able to be exposed to just
Absolutely.
an array of different things that's
Yep.
so instrumental to your success and your creativity and your innovation. And so college was one of the best experiences I've ever had, and I highly recommend anyone who's considering going to college to explore different pathways to go into an international university. I also had the privilege of being in France, studying abroad there. So that was a really big highlight for me, being able to be abroad in another country, living there, not just visiting, right? Because when you live there, you're able to be exposed to so many different things beyond just visiting. And then finally, what I want to call out, Marcelo, is when we think about the evolution of AI, and I know we're going to talk about that down the line here.
Yep.
When someone asked me the other day, he's a high school junior and he's considering applying for colleges later this year. He was asking me if I was in his shoes, right? If I was, 9 years younger, what kind of pathways would I explore, going into college? And, I think my answer today, with the rise of AI and with the rise of all these technologies, is very, very different than where I was back then, right? And the reason why I bring this up is because with the rise of AI, career pathways like computer science, accounting, like law degrees, right? Those different pathways are going to be really replaced or advanced with AI faster at a pace than we can even imagine, right? And so if I were to recommend someone to explore a career path for by way of college, I would really recommend people to explore things that they're actually passionate about, right? For example, healthcare, right? Hands-on healthcare. The doctors exploring paths to being, a healthcare professional, being a nurse, for example. Another one is a mechanical engineer, right? Or aerospace engineer. Another one is being understanding those small tasks that people don't even think about these days anymore, right? Being a carpenter, learning how to be like a physical engineer to build a house, right? Those small things and those pathways that I think are more relevant today than before, because of the rise of AI.
Absolutely. Yeah. And those would not be easy to automate with AI, right? So it's not something that AI will take over anytime soon, but you certainly recommend that the younger crowd, the risk their career path by choosing a path that would be less a risk with the overall AI automation, right? And so you mentioned that you lived in France, right? So how was it?
It was wonderful. It was a wonderful experience. I was able to study abroad there for about 7 months and learned the culture, learned a brand new language, learned a brand new world, and I was able to explore Europe. And for me, travel has always been a very big part of my life, whether it's for fun or for professional, for work, and that has been something that I've carried across in my life even to this day. I love being able to be exposed to different cultures and different backgrounds. How people do the small daily tasks, like go to school, they go to work, what they do, right? How they take inventory of things, right? How they, live their daily lives, right? And last year I had the very big fortune of visiting India for the first time. And it was a fascinating trip with my mom. And it was a shared experience that I had with her that I will never, ever forget, right? Just seeing the Taj Mahal, just being able to walk these historical grounds, right? Seeing, in some places, the unfortunate parts of the country that are still up and coming, right? That are still experiencing some severe poverty that we don't see on the media. And it's these experiences when you're able to go outside of, for example, big cities, that you're able to see, just how lucky we are, but also how fortunate that we are in a space in 2025 to be able to do stuff like this, Marcelo, right? To talk on technologies where they've never seen a phone before, right? So I love travel, and France is very, very, very special in my heart.
Yeah, it gives you an opportunity look at the world and learn a lot, and also be thankful for what you have. And
Right.
you know, not everybody has access to the same things that we have access to, right? So, and
Absolutely.
it's also, it's you went to you're born in Taiwan. You came to the U.S. at a very young age. You spent some time in France. I grew up in Brazil, and I moved to Canada almost 30 years ago. We met through work, and we met during the AWS conference last year. So, and here we are. So different perspectives in life, different career paths, but we get together and we do things together, and I think that generates some interesting discussions and opportunities like this one that we're having here today for sharing some stories, and hopefully helping others to understand what kind of career paths they can take in their lives, right? So, which is super exciting. And talking about a career path, can you tell us a little bit, how was the journey from university to your first job?
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is I am actually in my first job.
Mm-hmm.
And AWS was and is my first job out of college. And I'll walk you through kind of how I got here. I, in college, going into college, had an idea that I wanted to be in an impactful role, right? In an impactful role in society, in the world. And for me, that meant being in a role where I was, either on the road to be a diplomat or in an international organization like an NGO or nonprofit or a
Mm-hmm.
think tank. And I was very passionate about politics and very passionate about diplomacy and the likes of the world organizations like the United Nations. And so kind of followed my passions along that path and explored different opportunities, including working in a political consulting organization, and then eventually transitioning to becoming, an intern on the Hill. So I worked on Capitol Hill in D.C. in the United Senate, where I was walking the halls with other congressmen and congressmen in the United States, particularly for representing U.S. Senator Feinstein of California. And that was an incredible privilege for me to be a part of such a historical institution, right? And to attend different hearings and represent the senator in those events.
Absolutely. Yep.
However, with the rise of political tensions that we saw back then, and this was about 2018, 2019,
Mm-hmm.
with the rise of all the political tensions, whatever side you're on, right? I knew that the path of going to be a diplomat or to be a part of an NGO would be at risk, right? And so I wanted to explore other potential avenues and keep my doors open, right? And being at USC, I was exposed to different career paths that I never had explored or thought of. And so, started attending those different career events, right? Attending those different guest speaking events that was being put on by the university in different parts of the university. And found out that there was something called cloud computing. And cloud computing was, already very mature at the time, but for me, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know what it consisted of. However, did a lot of research on it, met a lot of people that were working in this space, cold emailed and cold LinkedIn messaged people in this space at AWS and other cloud providers, and really dove deep. And I was fascinated by the idea that someone could be in a sales function doing what I loved. And what I love is being able to help other people solve their problems. And, if you think about the themes that I've been able to do in my life and my career, whether that's through internships or student organizations or my extracurricular activities, or now in my advisement and investing role outside of work, it's all about how can I help people accomplish what they want to accomplish, right? And I found out that sales is exactly that, particularly in software sales at AWS, right? We work in a very particular way where other providers might not look at it in the same way, right? We work in a way that we help others first. We help other people accomplish their business goals first, rather than trying to close a deal, right? We're not pushy. We're not trying to push a deal down someone's contract. We're not in that zone, and that to me really felt comfortable. I felt comfortable with that culture and that mentality, because ultimately what I want to do, Marcelo, is to make sure that I find solutions to people's problems, right? And that's what I found to be a good fit. And so that's kind of my career path. I've been here for now almost 4 years, later this year, and I've just immensely enjoyed everything that I've had experienced so far.
That's fantastic, and it's also kind of interesting because, like I mentioned, the programming group that we have, the Os Programadores, usually a lot of the younger individuals, they're trying to get into the programming field or technology. They always think about programming languages, right? So, and one of the things I try to tell them is you need to think about solutions. You need to think about how you can use, because programming languages or technology in general, these are tools, right? So at the end of the show, you're going to be working with customers. You need to help those customers to solve the problems that they have. And if you're capable of speaking with customers, understanding what they need, and bringing solutions to the problems that they have, you're going to have a pretty good career. Because at the end of the show, that's what people are looking for, right? And so I'm glad that you found this path. But I'm a little bit curious about what you could tell us a little bit more about your work as an intern within DC, and how was the experience to be there among the politicians and seeing some of the debates and seeing some of the no shortage of challenges, right? So how was it, and how was the day-to-day of being in some of those discussions, and in a sense, how did that help you? And I'm sure that helped somehow on the path that you are as work with sales and trying to find solutions to your customers, right?
Yeah. Well, to your earlier point, Marcelo, I think it's really important to call out as well. If you think about all the successful businesses in the world, right? TSMC, we talked about Apple, we talked about Amazon, we talked about Google, we talked about, right? All of these different companies, what they relentlessly focus on is the customer.
Yep.
The customer. Ultimately, at the end of the day, if you don't have your customers, and if you don't partner with your customers, if you don't collaborate with your customers, you're not gonna have a product. And your business is going to go out of business, right? And so being able to be relentlessly focused on what your customer needs, collaborating with them, knowing them, making them challenge you, right? Pushing your limits, not you pushing their limits, them pushing your limits, to be stretched, to be focused on how you can help them accomplish their goals, right? Not them accomplish your goals, how you can accomplish their goals. That's so key, and that's what you're going to be successful in. And it's important to realize every single job function you're in, you're going to be doing some sort of sales, right? Whether or not you're holding a quota or not. As a manager, you're selling to your leaders. You're also selling to your team. How do you become on the same goal to reach that North Star, right? What is that North Star? Identifying that North Star, making sure that everyone is motivated, is on the same page, energized and interested in accomplishing a goal. Same thing in product roles. How do you get everyone aligned to what those P0, P1, P2 goals are, right? Understanding what do those sprints look like, right? Everything is in sales. And so being able to be good at sales is really important. But to answer your question, Marcelo, and I think it's very timely right now with everything going on with this administration in the United States and Canada and all across. My time in Washington was a wild roller coaster. For me, I represented the largest state in the country, California, the most senior senator at the time, Dianne Feinstein, who was in her 90s. She was an institutional senator during, and very respected in the Senate and in Congress and in politics. So having that badge of honor was really key, and really something that I did not take for granted. But being a part of that political kind of atmosphere was a crazy time. We were in the midst, actually, of Donald Trump's first impeachment rounds and proceedings. So as you can imagine, not just other fellow congressmen and congresswomen, staffers, citizens, people that were constantly, going against each other, right? Against each political parties, trying to constantly, being the loudest one in the room, right? Making sure that, they were able to gain the support that they needed, right? But also at the same time, realizing that what these politicians are there for is to represent their citizens and represent who they represent, right? To accomplish their daily lives, right? And so still needing to, pass those bills, still needing to go to hearings, still needing to talk to lobbyists, all these different things. And so what my job function during that time was to attend those hearings, Marcelo, in a very specific function. I was in the economics and trade function, and to attend those hearings to represent the senator, and then go back to the senator writing a very succinct memo. And that's what I learned and take away to this day, writing a very succinct memo on what exactly the hearing consists of, what the meeting consists of, and what our view, the office's view, the senator's view for this issue is. And so that's what my key, job function was. And it was an incredible honor to be there and to represent the senator in many instances, but also to speak to constituents, right? So we had to speak to her constituents, her residents in California, to make sure that their voices were heard, right? Because these politicians were elected, right, duly elected to their roles and to their positions by their citizens and constituents. And so the senator really, really took that to heart and made sure that, we were doing a good job speaking to her constituents and taking every single phone call, no matter how long it was.
It's fantastic, and it's an incredible experience that you had, right? So it's just, like you said, it's an honor and a privilege, right? So it's just incredible.
Yeah.
And so changing a little bit the topic here, but again, if you allow me to share something that I was just thinking here, where you're talking about politicians and politics, and I think and we're talking about thinking about customers and delivering solutions to the customers. I was thinking about people being, at the end of the show, they are the customers of the politicians, right? And I think again, that's my opinion. I think some of our politicians, they have forgotten that they exist because they are supposed to be serving the people, and they are supposed to be delivering solutions to the people. Right? So if you think from a customer perspective, I think some of these guys are forgetting why they're there, right? It's not about themselves. It's about helping others. It's about delivering solutions to the problems that others have and the people have, right? So, and hopefully they eventually they'll realize that. But changing a little bit the topic here. So you mentioned that you have an interest in startups, and you have done, or you're doing some work in advising some of these startups, and you do a little bit of angel investor work as well. And I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about that kind of work, and what does it, what's involved in being an advisor for some of the startups, or what kind of things you help them with, and what does it mean being an angel investor as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So my startup career actually started in college, where I started a mental health app. Mental health is something that I'm very passionate about. Growing up, experienced a lot of my own mental health, challenges, but have overcome them over time. And I really wanted to make a solution for others and scale that across the world. And we were able to build an app called SoundMind, where we were able to help others with their mental health challenges. But then that led me to realizing that, I wanted to serve in a capacity of advising and investing into other startups as well, because I got the same thing when I was a startup founder. And so I quickly transitioned to being able to advise other startups in the capacity of, a past experienced founder who was able to go through, funding rounds, building a product, building something from 0 to 1, building a team, right? Having a whole engineering team work, and sales team, marketing team, etc. And so that was something that I didn't want to let go. And so now I advise startups all over the world, really, in different capacities, whether that's a creator agency, whether that's AI companies, whether that's educational ed tech startups, or other kind of startups. And that's, to me, has been a very big part of my fun time, because for me it's fun, where I'm able to give people advice and make sure that they're successful, and again find solutions to problems that they're experiencing, because oftentimes these founders are doing it for the first time, doing it for by themselves or with limited resources, and if I can help them find solutions to what they're doing and unblock something, right, and help them to get rid of that bottleneck, I call that a win for everyone, right?
Absolutely.
And on the investing side, I'm an angel investor in now about 5 startups across different startups
Very cool.
states, and I do that because I want to make sure that these startups know that I'm not just there to support them as an advisor, but I also have skin in the game. And for me, that has been a really, really fun part of investing. People invest on the stock market all the time, and where they can invest in different bonds, etc., here and there. But for me, being able to be part of a high risk investment has been really fun, because I can go behind the scenes of understanding how other founders, other successful founders, are doing the job, are doing the work, are what's their strategy to scale their startup. And I'll give you one example. I invested in the startup in 2021, I think, and now they're already raising their series. And I was one of their first, I think 10 angel investors back in the time, and now they're already raising their Series C. And this is an AI. And I've been really, really proud to be part of that journey since the very beginning. And God forbid, I hope that they go IPO one day. Because it would be really, really fun to be a part of that, right? And I've been watching them since the very beginning, and the founders, come to my house, I go to their house, and hang out quite a bit. So being able to do that, being able to be part of a journey like that, a startup, is just awesome. And so if anyone's interested in startup investing, happy to talk. Angel investing can be, again, very high risk, but if you don't take the risk, there's no reward, right? And so being able to be part of that has been very awesome.
That's awesome. So it's super cool. And thank you for sharing a little bit of that with us as well. And going back to your current job at AWS, what can you tell us? Of course, not telling us any secrets or anything like that. That's not what I'm asking. But what can you tell us about your day-to-day work and some of the challenges that you have to go through in order to, I know you guys are always very concerned about customer success, right? So what can you tell us about day-to-day challenge, and how do you go about getting the job done?
Yeah, this kind of goes back to the 16 leadership principles that we have here at Amazon. And 16 leadership principles, if you Google it, it's our philosophy on how our company operates, not just our mission and culture, but really how our principles are. They're almost our guiding principles of our day-to-day, right? And a lot of them consist around, for example, customer obsession, our right a lot, thinking big on things, on issues, right? Again, customer first, right? And so being able to follow those as a guideline is really, really, really key for us as Amazonians, because in every single meeting that we're in, we always bring it up, right? And that's not just something that we, have writing on the wall, and there's some people read it when they enter and exit the office. It's truly, truly, truly part of our culture. And that's key. Because when I answer what day-to-day looks like, for me, my day-to-day is what the customer's day-to-day looks like, right? I wake up every day making sure that my customers are successful, making sure that my customers have solutions to their problems, making sure that my customers and partners, are able to proceed with what they're doing, right? And when I say customers, they're not just like my accounts, my customers. I consider my manager my customer. I consider my peers, my colleagues, my customer. I consider my software development team my customer. I consider my leadership my customer, right? And that is so important, because having that mentality, making sure that we fulfill our customers' needs, right? Again, unblocking them, right? Making sure that they're successful, making sure that they have everything that they need to be successful, right? Is really important. So my day-to-day looks very different. Although most days these days, I'm working with my external customers mainly, working on large scale projects with them, working with C-suites a lot, that's CIO, CTO, CEO, CFOs to build that case for them, right? To understand how can we make sure that they're successful with their cloud migration. In fact, 95% of the world right now is still on-premise, right? On-premise is sitting in people's own data centers, right? Or sitting in people's server closets. How do we make sure that customers understand the value of cloud and cloud computing, right? Getting unblocking things, right? Using the latest technology, whether that's CPUs or GPUs, right? Leveraging AI to help them with their data. That way, they're not having to, have technical debt, right? And unblocking that for customers and building that business cases is what my goal as a cloud solutions consultant essentially is. Here at AWS.
That's fantastic. And the view of everybody as a customer is super important, right? So because it's about not just your external customer success, but it's a success of everybody that's working with you.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's what you're doing, and that's super important for sure. So you are in the Forbes 30 under 30, right?
Yep.
What does it mean? What can you tell us about that?
Yeah. Well, so I had the pleasure of being named a two-time actually Forbes 30 and 30 for North America and also for Los Angeles in 2024 last year. And this was an incredible honor. When we think about other Forbes 30 under 30 honorees, they include Mark Zuckerberg, they include the Kushner brothers, right? Other really, really top level, executives and also song performers, artists, influencers, actors, actresses. So being able to part of that, like I still have imposter syndrome that I am part of that group. But I was honored because I was, again, the co-founder of SoundMind, where we were able to scale our app to hundreds of thousands of users across the world and make an impact in the youth mental health space. So now these days, I'm still involved in this Forbes events. I attend different, gatherings here and there. And it's really, really, really cool to be part of a global community, Marcelo, right? So everywhere I go, I can open up my WhatsApp group and there's someone that's going to be in a local city that I can, go hang out with, whether that's New York or Tokyo or Paris or Taiwan or Shanghai or Bangkok. There's a Forbes 30 under 30 honoree, and we have that shared kind of, credential to be with each other and to learn from each other. And these are typically, founders, investors, people who are building something new, people who are really at the forefront of trying to, create some impactful solutions across the world.
We have some pretty high expectations for you, Travis. No pressure.
Gosh, the pressure's on.
The pressure's on, man.
Yeah.
So no, can't sleep anymore. So tell us a little bit more about SoundMind and how was the experience of bringing an idea to thousands of people worldwide, right? So what can you tell us about that experience?
Yeah, it was an incredible experience, and I think every single person who's interested in building a startup should do it. However, it's not for everyone, and it's not meant to be something easy at all. I remember, so for context, my roommate at the time and I had built this together, and we were in college, and COVID hit, and we all knew what happened then, where we were all sitting at home, not really knowing what to do, and no one knowing what to do, right? And very quickly, we were like, how do we build something from the ground up, right? How do we do something that's impactful and that's fun and that we do together? And so we stayed up, for nights. And then when I say nights, like we were doing that for years in our little small bedroom, shared bedroom, where we were trying to build something from the ground up. And we had to, number one, find an idea, find a solution, understand what customers wanted, go talk to customers, right? Go talk to people who would actually use this product, and then work backwards from that, right? And that's another thing that, Amazon really, really values, right? Like working backwards from your customer, right? Same thing. backwards from your finding problems or solutions to problems that your customers need, working backwards from that. So we had to really do that in order to validate what we were trying to build, right? And when we did that, we were able to identify, okay, this is our secret sauce. This is what was going to be our value proposition. This is what's going to be successful in the market, right? And then, finding that first initial designer to help us build out that first initial UI, right? And then having the engineering teams trying to figure out, okay, so how do we build this from the ground up, right?
Mhm.
Testing it, prototyping it, doing those sprints, P0s, P1s, P2s, right? Understanding what it took to launch products. That's something that's so key for me. And I miss those days actually of launching products, because it's so fun, where you're not just consisting of your product teams, your engineering teams, but also marketing, sales, right? Doing all these different things to enable your company to move forward with that launch, right? And then finding investors, right? So we were able to find investors across multiple domains and also different VCs, and doing that pretty successfully. And that was a really fun time of my career. And I was doing this in tandem during college. And so it was really, really awesome to just be a part of a fast-growing group, a group of very passionate people, and a group of very passionate people who are in it to make an impact on the world, right? And this opportunity took me to the world to be able to to sell our product, right? To talk to more people about our product, and I was able to be on NBC, for example, on Fortune magazine, on in Business Insider, to talk about what we're doing.
Incredible.
Because at the end of the day, we're not just building an enterprise. We're not trying to build a business. We were trying to really make an impact on the world, and that's what for me is the key in any business that I'm doing, right? How do we make an impact on society, on the world?
That's incredible, and thank you for sharing that again. And it's such a fantastic experience. So it's just incredible. And talking about something incredible, you're also doing a business fellowship with Perplexity, right? So for those that are not familiar, Perplexity is pretty big into AI, right? So it's adding pressure to Google and some other services from a search engine perspective as well. And what can you tell us about that business fellowship, and how is that going to further develop your skills within AI?
Yeah, well, for those who don't know, Perplexity is really in a mission to change how search engines work, right? Right now, typically people go to Google or even TikTok now these days to search things.
Mhm.
But Perplexity is really trying to change that using AI. And what's fascinating about Perplexity is just the pace of innovation that they're doing. If you think about it, they didn't exist 5 years ago, but they really jumped on the generative AI wagon, and really thought about, like, what does humanity need an evolutionary change in, right? And they realized that people really wanted a revolutionary change in search. Google search just was not doing and fulfilling everything that they needed in a quick manner, right? And so I really have been following Perplexity since the very beginning. Unfortunately, did not invest in them in 2020 and 2021, but was able to follow their entire trajectory from the very beginning. And so they actually reached out to me and was like, hey, would you be interested in applying to be a part of the AI Business Fellowship Program? And I took on the opportunity and applied for it, and then now part of the fellowship. And this is a group of entrepreneurs, business leaders, fellow people in the cloud computing industry, who are really at the forefront of AI and technology, and trying to learn about how to leverage AI and technology, and also like understanding not just using the product, but also how do other industries leverage this technology, right? How do we leverage Perplexity and also other different search engines, right, in people's workforce, right? For example, there's a lot of companies now these days who have implemented generative AI technologies into their HR onboarding process, right? Which is now, bringing or increasing productivity for a lot of their HR teams and onboarding process by, to the tune of like 50%, right? Saving hours and hours and hours. Other teams that I've, read on the news and in blogs as well, is like financial teams that are able to, leverage AI to quickly summarize those financial statements, right? Quickly summarize and give updates on how the forecast of the company is, right? Same thing with legal teams, right? Using search to find legal documents, which are typically like thousands and thousands of pages long, right? And these are instances where we are really saving human hours, right, and increasing productivity for these different users in technology and using technology. And so I really wanted to be at the forefront of that. And this AI Perplexity fellowship program that I'm part of is just a small a reason why I'm continuing to learn so much in the AI technology space.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So it's going to be incredible to see what you're going to be accomplishing there. So maybe we can do another interview in the future. You can tell us a little bit more about that. So that'd be incredible. So you're working for one of the most important organizations in the technology sector these days, right? So it's AWS is huge, and I realize you're still at the early stages of your career, right? So you don't have 50 years or 30 years or 40 years of IT experience or sales experience. But speaking with you, it's like there's so much coming out of you, right? There's so much. It's like drinking from the fire hose, right? So there's so many ideas and so much that you can offer. But is there anything that when you look into, you're dealing with AI, you're dealing with cloud computing, you're dealing with very high tech kind of opportunity. You're dealing with a lot of people with very complex organizations, and you see levels and all sorts of discussions. But is anything in particular that you do not work today, you're not dealing with today, but you'd love to have an opportunity to deal with in the future? I know you're dealing with AI, you're dealing with cloud computing. It may be hard to think about that, but anything that comes to mind that you may want to explore at some point in time?
Yeah, great question. I have and I talked about this earlier on mental health. I really have a very big passion on finding how AI can help humanity and help improve the lives of people who are less fortunate than us, right? And for me, that's where I fill my bucket. My we talk about like different buckets in our lives and our careers, right? That for me fills my bucket when I'm able to find ways, inspiring ways to help people who are less fortunate than us. And so that's what I'm trying to explore. I'm trying to figure out how can humanity leverage generative AI and AI in general to help those who are less fortunate. And we're seeing a lot of use cases already, right? I think a lot of bigger institutions, way more powerful and way more influential people than me are doing some really cool things with that. But I want to really be able to be a part of that and make impactful solutions, right, to help people with their livelihoods, right? In third world countries that are struggling, that are still figuring out how to make ends meet, right? And so I that's something that I'm passionate about and that I want to explore. And it'll take some time. I don't have a definitive answer right now or immediate answer right now.
Absolutely.
I definitely want to explore more of that because I know that there's a lot that we can do as a society.
So if you allow me to explore the theme of future and society and mental health and or health in general and AI, what do you think the future is going to look like? You're Gen Z, like you told me about, right? So you went through many different challenges as you came up as part of that generation, right? So what's your vision or what the future looks like, or the future is going to look like? As we're going through a little bit of strange things being done by politicians and everything else, and that there's uncertainty in many ways, right? So and how do you think that the future is going to look like?
Yeah, well, what I'll tell you, Marcelo, is with the rise of globalization and the pace that we're innovating as a society, right? And also the political tensions and the geopolitical tension that we're seeing. This is a scary time, This is a scary time,
Mhm.
and there's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it, right? Again, we're going to see jobs continuing to be eliminated in developed countries, because a lot of those jobs will be moved to developing countries or replaced by AI. We're going to see a lot of people trying to shift, what they were good at, to focus on what's going to make ends meet, right? And we're also going to see the rise of developing countries, right? Be able to leverage technologies to do some really, really cool things that we've never even imagined possible in the time frame that was possible, right? And so these are things that I think is something that we should really consider. It's going to be a challenging time, going to be a very, very fearful time, but at the same time also a very exciting time, right? With the rise of globalization, and this is how technology has been able to evolve with the rise of globalization. We should be celebrating those countries that are developing things and doing things at a rapid pace, innovating rapidly than we have ever seen, right? We should be celebrating that people in rural countries can leverage technology and AI to learn at paces that we weren't
Mhm.
able to do that, right? And so that's something that we should do as a society. And I encourage everyone, to open up their arms, right? Open up their hearts, open up their chest, right? To reframe what we think, and how we think, right? Rather think about, what is it in for me? What is it in for us? What is it in for our world and our society, right? Instead of thinking about me, how about we, right? And changing that idea that we as a world, as a globe, as a society can continue to make some really, really impactful solutions, right?
Mhm.
And help each other out, right? And respect each other's boundaries, and also respect that we are there to help each other accomplish each other's goals, right? And so that's what I really preach to many people, especially in the youth community, because I think oftentimes it's social media and the rise of technology, the rise of all these different breaking news outlets, etc., have now caused us to live in a very individualistic world, and
Mhm.
a worldview that is very selfish, right? But if we change that mindset to become, how do we as a society, help each other, join forces, right? Go back to the idea of, like, how do we be diplomatic, right? When we talk about politics, that'll help us open up our worldview, and that'll help us win together.
That's fantastic. It's a great view of things. And Travis, we're talking about the future. We're talking about what you envision is going to happen. Um, what about looking back for time? And again, I realize you're still very young, but there's not that much time behind you, right? So, but even though you're pretty young, but if you look for time back into life, and would you have done anything different if you had a chance?
Yeah. I'm very grateful, Marcelo, for everything that I've been able to experience, and also the pressure that I give myself, right? And then people ask me all the time, like, "Hey, was this pressure that you were able to, do X, Y, and Z at a certain age from your family or your parents or your siblings or your grandparents?" I'll be the first to say, my parents will be the first to say, none of that. And it was my self kind of intention, and that's something very important. Being intentional, right, with what you want to do and what you want to accomplish, right? Being and recognizing that you need to be your own advocate, right? And your own advocate's advocate, right? To accomplish what you want to accomplish, right? And being able to recognize, like, hey, I have goals and I want to meet those goals, right?
Mhm.
And that's something that I put on myself. And so, I don't know if there's anything in particular that I would have changed in time. Would I have probably wanted to take more risks, earlier risks, when I was younger, and faster and quicker, and learn how to, pick back up from those failures and setbacks? Probably would probably love to see more of that. and I'll continue to take more risks as I continue down my career. But I'm very grateful for all the experiences that I have, the people that I met, including you, Marcelo, all my customers, all the people that are in my life now, with my family, with my friends, with my loved ones, with my chosen family, all these different things that I've been able to experience. I'm just so grateful, and I cannot complain one bit about everyone and everything that I've experienced.
Yep, it's a very important thing to be thankful, and I think we have to be really thankful for everything that we have, everything we have been able to accomplish, and the people that we meet, and everything else, right? So, because we're way ahead of the game compared to other people, right? So it's and we got to help others as well. So I think it's like you said, it needs to be the we and not the me.
Absolutely.
So that's I think you said really well. And Travis, like I mentioned to you, as part of the programming group, the technology group that we have, there's always people asking questions. There's always uncertainty, right? So about which career path to take, and is it for me? Is it not for me? Should I take this? What's AI going to do? So should I learn to program, or AI is going to be doing everything I shouldn't be learning to program? What kind of recommendations would you have for the younger adults that are trying to get into the technology field and embrace a career in technology? What would you tell these people today?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier, Marcelo, right? Like not putting yourself in a very fixed mindset of this is what I need to do and this is the role and job function that I want to accomplish, right? And I think the idea that, you go into a cushy, software development role, software, engineering role, you can do some, great stuff, and you can just kind of, swim it out in the corporate life. That's not the case anymore. Sorry, that story is behind us, right? AI, with the rise of AI, code development is extremely fast. I know that a lot of companies are unfortunately getting rid of a lot of engineering roles because they know that they can be replaced by really cheaper technology leveraging AI, right? And so when you think about going into the workforce in technology, right, you again have to go back to the idea of what do your customers want, right? What does humanity want, right? And technology, by the way, can come in different ways. It doesn't have to necessarily be software. It can be hardware. We're seeing the rise of different humanoids, robots, for example, Figure AI as an example, right? We're seeing the rise of all these different technologies like Starlink and Project Kuiper, which are doing satellite orbit, technologies to provide, airplanes Wi-Fi. That would have never been a thing that we thought of 20 years ago.
Yep.
Right? There's different things that you can be a part of in technology. And so being open-minded, thinking about different things, right? Thinking about how you can leverage your experience. And if you don't have experience, build experience, right? Small things like learning how to build a robot, right? Learning how to use AI, creating a large language model, right? Learning the different ways that large language models are impacting businesses, right? Creating a small demo that you send to 50 people on the internet and getting them feedback from them on how they're using it, right? These small things is going to open your mind to so many different things beyond just a fixed mindset of being a software engineer. So don't have that fixed mindset. I encourage everyone to open up their minds to what else in technology you can be a part of. But also, at the end of the day, right, you have to be at the forefront of technology. And to be at the forefront of technology, that means adopting technology, being adaptable, being agile, learning and leveraging the latest and greatest technologies, right? Testing it out. Don't be afraid to adopt these new technologies. And then also reading the news about all these different things as well, right? With X and with Instagram and with LinkedIn, all of these founders are posting all the time about what they're doing in their companies and giving you a behind the scenes look, which again wouldn't have been possible 20 years ago. And so being able to do that and read about that is super awesome. And we should definitely take advantage of those opportunities today.
Fantastic, great recommendation. And Travis, talking a little bit more about recommendations, do you have any suggestions about we spoke about so much, right? So, but any recommendations about books, music, games, movies, anything you want to recommend, food or whatever you'd like to recommend?
Well, we talk about food. We can be here all day. But for me, I am a big reader, and I love different books. And for me, I actually am just about to finish up and I'll share the name of the book, and I don't remember what the book but is the name of the book is. But I'm reading a book right now about a toddler's toddler's nanny in New York City. And it talks about this Gen Z nanny who grew up in a pretty rural, countryside, in a lower income community. Now is taking care of someone in New York City with a very lavish lifestyle. And I think for me, reading books like that, similar books like that, it really opens my eyes to different cultures and different ideologies and different identities, right, in the world. I just also finished a book recently called Tomorrow, and Tomorrow, which if you haven't read yet, highly recommend. That book really opened my eyes to, again, the differences in backgrounds, the differences in ideologies, the differences in how humanity comes together with different backgrounds and different perspectives and comes together in accomplishing something, right? And the relationships that you're able to build in that. And I think, I've always been a nonfiction reader, but recently I've been reading more fiction books, Marcelo, because I've just been fascinated by, just these different ideologies and these different authors that are putting together some really incredible art. But food-wise, I'm a very big fan of food. I love cooking. In fact, I have something on the stove right now that I'm going to enjoy after this podcast recording that I made earlier today. And cuisine-wise, I'm a very big fan of Japanese food, French cuisine, Italian food, and some really good wine as well. So I could be here all day.
Absolutely, yeah, could be here for a while. And great recommendations, and thank you again. And Travis, we have been talking here for around 1 hour, and time goes by very quickly, right? And are there any questions that you think I should have asked and I did not?
No, that's a great question, Marcelo. I think you covered a lot of it, and I'm grateful that you provided me this opportunity. I think if I were to ask myself one question, right, it would be how and what would I recommend to those who are struggling right now to land a job? Because I know how hard it is in the market to find a job, especially in technology today. And I have many friends who are struggling in that space. What I would recommend to anyone kind of goes back to what I said earlier about building out your experience, right? Never taking unemployment or the not having something to do as an excuse to not do something, right? You can always be doing something. With the rise of AI, with the rise of technologies today, we're at a pace where you can really innovate faster than we've ever been able to do before, right? You're able to stand up a landing zone or a landing page really quickly, right? So really taking advantage of that technologies during your free time, right? Building a project, right? Learning entrepreneurship, being able to be a part of a peer group who takes each other accountable is really key. And I encourage anyone who's looking for a job to start doing that today.
That's a great recommendation. Great question. Great answer. And Travis, before we close, anything you'd like to share in terms of contact information, LinkedIn, social network, anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, very happy to to connect with anyone who's looking to connect. I love sharing my own story, my own background. But again, Marcelo, to your point, I'm very early in my career. And my experiences are very slim when it compared to other folks and guests on your podcast here, Marcelo. So I'm very honored that you asked me to join. But if anyone's interested in connecting with me, always happy to chat. I'm available on LinkedIn at Travis Chen, where I'm a LinkedIn top voice, so you can probably find me pretty easily. And also available on Instagram at Travis M. Chen as well.
You're very humble. So thank you. It's been a privilege speaking with you and meeting you. And I look forward to our next gathering, and hopefully it will be soon. And again, it's 7:15 p.m. here, our time on a Friday evening after work. And we both work the whole day, and here we are. Thank you for giving us a gift of being able to speak with you, and thank you for the time. And hope you have a fantastic rest of the night and a great meal, because I'm in between you and your meal now, right? So it's not a good place to be.
No worries. No, I'd rather be doing this.
Give me a couple minutes. I'm going to stop recording. Thanks again, Travis.
Thank
But
you.
stay with me for a couple minutes here.
Will do.
Thanks.